Hello. I think this is working. It's taken a while. I'm without my man behind the computer, Stephen. So hello and welcome to Black Crow's Meta Monday, where this week we are going to discuss the LGT and the Meta Monday article. This week, unfortunately, the man with the voice is off sick, so we've replaced him with another fine crow specimen. He is as tall as an Eldari, and you may recognise him from his battle reports from Black Crow and Tabletop Tactics. It's Matt. Give us a wave.
Hello.
Hello. I hope everyone can hear him, because if not, this is going to be a very boring Meta Monday. Our next guest has just finished his stint in the LGT, doing very well with a 4-1 best in faction and best in 4 general. He is a Vanguard tactics coach, the lead of Sons of War Warhammer 40k team, and the organiser of Peterborough Slam. It's Paul. Can you give us a wave, Paul?
Hello.
You know what the funny thing is, I did actually have you both muted for the stream, but you are both live now, so it's all good.
Well, fingers crossed it's all working now.
It is. I've got it going. So,
Perfect.
LGT, Matt, you've got some burning questions.
Yeah. Well, it's obviously a big weekend for all things big in the world. We've had, a big victory for Europe in the Ryder Cup, and then we've also had the biggest tournament in the world this year in the LGT. 760-ish players, I believe, something like that. So I suppose, Paul, you were somebody that was there. I sadly missed out on it this year. How was it?
How was it? That's a very broad question, isn't it? So LGT is always a big, exciting event. It's the biggest Warhammer event that I go to. I haven't been to LVO yet, so LGT is the biggest event I go to.
No, LVO is definitely on my list, I must admit.
I have been on a bit of run the previous year, so I have gone 4-1 the last 3 years at LGT, but I've never gone 4-1 and been the highest general 4-1. So this has been my best LGT of date, and I played against 5 very good players. Very tough competitive weekend. But they were running the new, I don't know how you would word this, the scoring is based on the strength of opponent you play. So I guess the fact that I guess the fact that I played against 5 strong players, of which 3 of the players I beat came 4-1 also, and the other was 3-2, obviously played a big part in me ending up 4-1.
Yeah.
But as always, it was packed. Everyone was having fun, great sportsmanship. Great food, as always. Lots of drinks, lots of catching up with people that you haven't seen for a few months or since the last LGT. But all in all, great weekend.
Yeah, definitely. It seems to pull in a lot of big players. I know we had players like Anthony Vanella coming over from the States. I know we've got everybody from, Nassim Fachain and Manny and all the big names, Vic VJ, all that sort of stuff all over. It seems they were doing quite well. So I know Manny and Nassim were 3rd and 4th, I believe. We obviously had the top 2 placings. I'm not 100% sure who they were. I know the Chaos Space won. So that's
Liam.
Liam Vassell.
Yep.
Yeah, big shock for me personally as a introduced Eldari. I'm a big fan of the Eldari, and we've been very powerful over this edition. I think the tone downs have just brought us in line a little bit, so we're beatable. But I still thought Eldari was going to do it, but pipped at the post. But
were you watching the stream at all? Was you watching it?
No, I didn't catch any of it. Sadly, I've been at work, and then. It's always difficult. I love Warhammer. I love watching it. I love catching up on it. It's always the same time as like a Chelsea game or a big golf
or needing to make a living.
Myself away. Yeah, exactly. Or work. So I didn't catch it. I managed to catch up a couple of little bits over sort of Saturday and Sunday. But yeah, I didn't see too much of it. But yeah, I've heard, the terrain was great as always. I've been to a few of the UK TC events and they've always been pretty good. But Paul, what did you run at LGT?
Thousand Suns.
Thousand Suns. How are you finding them at the moment?
So there's been lots of talk about Thousand Suns, about obviously the point increases and obviously the FAQs, the changes to how you can use your cabals, and a lot of people were put off, and they suddenly went from a not top tier but a very strong tier to a mid tier faction. But I've found if you just play a slightly different type of list, they still got the same potency that they had before, and I found them very strong. into the opponents I played. I had CSM, Chaos Space Marines, the last two games, which were two very different games. And I struggled in the last game against Chris Radford. He's very good with his Chaos Space Marines.
I've played Chris a few times. He's a strong player.
Yeah, he is. And Thousand Suns I didn't have anything that I could deal with that list. So that was an uphill fight for me. Opposed to the previous round where I got the upper hand on my opponent early on and very much almost tabled him by turn 3. So Thousand Suns are very much a go first army. If I go first, I can really gain ground and get the upper hand, and I think that's what happened in round 4. Not so much in the last game though. But yeah, I'm enjoying them. They're fun, lots of tricks, fast moving, lots of different builds. Yeah.
So I have got a question for you. Were you not tempted by the new Tyranids? Because I know you're a big Tyranid fan. Tyranids have done very well. If we go down the meta article, Tyranids actually have won a few tournaments down there. Now, Paul, you're a very capable player. What put you off, or were you just, I'm going to take Thousand Suns to LGT? And that's
nothing put me off. So I am currently number 1 in the UK for Tyranids, and I looked at the points, and no one can catch me for the end of the season. So that title is kind of in the bag. So I kind of went with what I was enjoying at the moment. So I didn't have to take Tyranids to kind of stay top. So, and the new codex had just come out. I've not had a lot of reps with them. I wanted to go to LGT with an army that I've been playing consistently and have built a solid understanding of going into such a big, important tournament, because it's a lot of points on the line at LGT when you're looking at rankings. So I went in ranked 25th in the UK, and I was hoping to have a good tournament and push me into the top 20 this year, because that was my aim. Top 20 this year. I hope I've done enough. I mean, best tournament I could have expected. So I hope I've achieved my goals.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a few tournaments coming up, haven't we, as well? I mean, we're both going to Leicester. So we've got that. That's kind of probably the next. Is that your next? That's our next super major, surely. Leicester.
Coventry, then Leicester.
Are you going to Coventry?
Yeah, 3-day Coventry. That'll be fun.
Oh, long.
So, Arron, you've got all the stats in front of you there, I imagine, because I'm trying to get mine in front of me, but they're not staying there because my phone keeps locking. So, what's the breakdown for the LGT top 10? So let's go through and see what's what and see what our thoughts are on the meta.
So, number 1, as we all know, was Chaos Space Marines. Number 2 was Eldari. Number 3 was Eldari. Number 4 was Chaos Space Marines. Number 5, Eldari.
I'm not saying it.
Number 6, Eldari.
No. We'll get some surprises in a minute, though.
Number 7 under Gladius Task Force was Dark Angels. Number 8 was Space Marines. Number 9 was Chaos Space Marines. And number 10, the one that's probably shocked me the most, was Chaos Knights.
Interesting. So, I mean, looking at it, to be honest, for a top 10, it's, especially of late, it's fairly mixed. There is a couple of factions in there, a bit of a surprise. Yes, there are a lot of Eldari, but personally, as an Eldari player, I always thought that was going to be the case. I mean, I'm fiddling around with a few Eldari lists at the moment that are a little bit more off meta than some. You know, I'm using a lot of bikes at the moment, whereas people are still using warp spiders. I'm doing that purely because I hate fine cast models. So I like the bikes, and I've been using them to some success. But you know, Eldari still have a lot of tricks. I want to know a little bit more, and you know, Paul is somebody who's playing at least a Chaos faction. What's the trick with Chaos? Because it appears Chaos has done quite well now. It's not an army I'm particularly familiar with. So yeah, do you know what the tricks are for Chaos at the moment?
It's not necessarily Chaos in general, because they're all very different. But Chaos Space Marines at the moment is the biggest annoying thing for me when I play against Chaos Space Marines is the Mark of Nurgle and the ability to not be shot when you're out 12 inches, which then makes the opponent have to come to them. And then they've got so many fast, hard-hitting units. So the list I played against Chris Radford, it was like I couldn't shoot the stuff that was shooting at me because I couldn't get close enough, and I needed to stay 27 inches away because if not, I'd get a whole load of Chosen come running out of a Rhino and just brutalize me. So it's like, so what do? I can't get close, but I need to stay away. And they've got so many like tricks and abilities, and they're so fast and they're so durable, and they've just got a lot of tools in their bag at the moment, and I think that's what makes them so strong.
Yeah, they all seem to, from what I can see from the lists that have done well this weekend, they all seem to have sort of three things in common, which seems to be Chosen, this stupid blob, which I have been on the end of, the Curtis Cultists. I hate them. And the Forge Fiends seem to see a lot of Forge Fiends, heavy damage, good damage output.
And Obliterators are brutal.
Yes. I've been on the end of them when it was the Wraith Knight days, and even though I managed to overwatch them to death, the next blob came down and scared the pants off of me. So they're still very strong. But people
there's always a combination of, if they have two units, it's one unit is Nurgle, so you can't shoot them, and they normally start on the board, and one unit is undivided, so they start off the board, jump on, and then they've got that horrible strat where they can reroll everything.
They seem to be running in two-man blobs as well, rather than the big four, which I tend to see. But
there was a mix. So I played against, say, round 4, 2 blobs of 4, and then Chris Radford was 2 blobs of 2, which seemed to be the popular choice at the top end of the main.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, no, that sounds really good. The other army that has done well this weekend, Arron's alluded to, is Tyranids. Again, I kind of personally expected that because they've got a codex. They're the only army with a codex. So for me, early editions, it always tends to be the new codex is the new hotness. Paul, you said you're a top player when it comes to Tyranids. Where do you think Tyranids are going to go for moving forward?
Well, personally, so to kind of follow on from the previous question about Tyranids, I am looking at the possibility of going back into them. And if I do, it would be Vanguard Onslaught, because that kind of matches my play style, very fast,
and
aggressive,
top, right?
full-back charge.
Vanguard Tactic, Vanguard Onslaught.
It's got nothing to do with this,
So when you play Tyranids, you're just always going to wear your Vanguard Tactics top and be like, I'm running this.
Stephen made the same joke on a Vanguard live stream about Vanguard Onslaught.
Did he? Oh, God. Now I sound like I'm copying him. I'm not.
But any army that can fall back charge, advance and charge, lots of speed, lots of fight first.
That's lots of early pressure, isn't it? You've got a lot of infiltrating units that can also then advance and charge early. First turn.
And I've not tried it out myself yet, but I mean, I would imagine a lot of the top players are leaning towards fixed secondaries as well, opposed to tactical. So it's a sort of army for me. Probably want to try it out, that I could build into that, and it kind of feels like it could be a high scoring army, not necessarily like a big killy army, like table your opponent, but one of those armies that your opponent finds very difficult to stop from scoring.
So that's very interesting, actually, because the top 4, there was a mixed bag between who took tactical and who took fixed. And I think, Paul, did you catch the final and also Manny's game? So
I watched parts of it,
So Manny took fixed and his opponent took tactical. Eldari came on top. It looked like Manny early on was doing quite well, but he took his turn 1 was he took quite a beating turn 1. He kind of lost all of his stuff that was really going to hurt the Eldari, but he was still able to score high because he just had the mass amount of cursed cultists flooded the board. So he scored.
Who was running the Eldari in second place? Sorry, I didn't catch who that was. Because I know Nassim was running it, but I don't know who was running it in second.
Hugo?
Yeah, Hugo. I can't remember his name.
Or something like that. It was Hugo and then Leo.
Yeah, Ricciardi.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't ask a British man to pronounce another man's last.
I think that's how.
Yeah. Okay. So I must admit, he's not a name I'm particularly familiar with as an Eldari person.
I think isn't he like the captain of one of the whatever
possibly
from? I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure I've heard the name before. I mean, we've heard Liam before. He's quite well known in the WTC circuit.
Yeah.
Obviously, we all know Vic. We all know Manny, who were there. One person I want to do a special shout out for, a gentleman who came to also the EA Slam, was Aidan Brocklehorse. He was in the top 20, wasn't he? He did really well.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, so there's some good placings from top players, as you kind of expect. I know Vic was up there, running his favourite army, as he'll admit, is Eldari, which I know he was, piloting Hail of Doom at the end of ninth and stuff like that. So Paul, just going back to the LGT as an overall, because we kind of touched on everybody in terms of meta stuff. Any improvements on what you've seen? What would you change? What did you like? Is there anything that you go back to? I know a lot of people have said that the UKTC with the terrain, it is good, it's solid. It's a bit boring and samey because it's all ruins. Is that a thing that bothers you, or?
Not really. I quite like the terrain. I always have done, and I think they've followed suit with like boarding up the bottom floors and stuff like that. When we had Taran was a big problem, and the maps worked out really well. The only thing I would say that I know I didn't find too exciting at the tournament, and I know a lot of other people didn't, is that they played it very safe with the missions. 4 out of 5 missions was Chilling Reign.
Chilling Reign, I did see that. I did a couple of practice games for one of my club mates down in Plymouth at Cross Swords, and he went 3-0 first day with Grey Knights. So shout out to Gareth.
Gareth is going to be on the. He is going to be on next week, actually. So.
He's going to be on the channel filming the battle report. So he went 3-0 and then ran into 2 Eldari players. And to be fair, he beat. I think his last 3 games were Eldari, which is just not fair. And we ran a couple of practice games because he wanted practice into Eldari, and we played 2 of the missions. We rolled 2 up out of the 5, and they were both Chilling Reign. And I sort of looked at him and went, "This is really dull." I can kind of see that. And I mean, I'm glad they didn't use Servo Skulls, because I hate that. That's the worst mission ever, and I don't know why it's in the tournament pack. I've seen a couple of people complain about even before the tournament started, about the fact that Chilling Reign was in there.
I mean, the main missions were fine. I mean, they did out of the 5 that I made. I mean, it was prior targets come up twice, taken holes, purge the foe, and scorched earth, which are fine. But it was the other side of the missions where they just went safe.
Definitely.
Yeah, they did the one where they split the center objectives. And then it was all Chilling Reign. And boring. Yeah, and they could have thrown it. I mean, maybe 2 Chilling Reigns and then 1 split objectives and 2 randoms. Something just to make it a little bit interesting.
Definitely.
I suppose they want to make it.
I know several people said the same thing.
They want to make it a bit easier, I suppose, for because we've got that many players. It can become quite confusing, I imagine, if they're going from like mission to mission. They'll be like, "Oh, what mission are we on now?" And it's probably easier for them to make sure that all of these people are playing correctly.
I get that. I think
it's a safe choice, isn't it? It's a safe choice.
Like you say, it's a safe choice. And weirdly, there are some of the rules in the GW mission pack where they've got the missions that you can pick from for tournaments, that they have the mission rule. They're not that complicated. Like, there's a few of them. Like I said, I personally hate Servo Skulls. I don't think it should be a tournament mission. It's so naff. But there are some other ones that I'm trying to think. Is it the Ritual? Is that one of the other ones?
Yeah.
I like that one. And there's a couple of other ones which are like they're just 4 up for your deep strikers. It just adds a little bit of extra challenge.
Delayed reserves, minefields. There's a few others. The cards that you throw away before you then make your missions up.
Yeah, exactly. So you could. There's nothing. I mean, like I said, delays reserves. You only have to think about it for turn 2. Because after that, it doesn't come into play. So it just adds a little bit of, especially if you've got a plan on deep striking, it just means, oh, hang on a minute, I might have to think about this. So that's good. But no, I think like I said about the terrain, positive. It is all good. It does what it needs to do, which is provide cover, provide decent surface. A bit of a a terrain snob. I like,
Yeah.
I'm lucky to have been over to SN and things like that. It's just like, okay, this would be really nice. I'm going to do another shout out to 40KW on Instagram, Kieran, who's got a very controversial opinion about terrain in tournaments, the legend that he is.
You know what?
But
We've
yeah,
invited you onto the stream, Phil. You're just using it as a time to
name dropping.
Yeah, name drop everybody.
Yeah. But I was sure Paul can do that with Vanguard as well. But yeah, it's it's good to see. So Arron, that's LGT. I think we've kind of summed it up. It was a great event from what I hear. I don't think there was too many dramas from what I understand involved in any of the games that certainly were on stream. I've heard there's a couple of nitpicks from people, but we don't want to get into gossip. But yeah, it's
an 800-person event. It's going to happen.
Yeah, you're going to have some disagreements. So yeah, pretty smooth. And as I can't think, it's been a very long time, I think, since a UKTC event has had any kind of major controversy. I think maybe the Coventry one a couple of years ago, where it was like something happened and there was a bit of a weird issue and some rulings went wrong. But other than that, I mean, I've been to Bristol, I've been to a Coventry one as well. They've always really well run by Zach and the team there. So, running a 760 person event is pretty challenging. So I think they've done a pretty good job. What else?
Yeah, I'd agree. I go to every single one pretty much, and it's very rare that I hear or see drama.
Yeah,
there's normally a table that doesn't submit, and Zach's kind of shouting at him on the microphone to submit the score, they get zeroed, which was happening at the back end of Sunday. But that's just people being a little bit slow.
Yeah. These things happen. Right, let's move on.
Exactly.
We're gonna. So the LGT wasn't the only big event that was happening in Europe at the time. So the Hanseatic Alliance Open was in Bremen, Germany. That's 200 players, 6 rounds. Now, they use WTC scoring, obviously, and I'm just going to... I don't know if you guys have got the Meta Monday article up, but...
I have indeed.
So I'm going to run you through the top 3, and actually I'm going to do the top... Let's do the top 10, because actually, it's actually very interesting top 10. Bear in mind...
Yeah, definitely agree.
This is a 200-person event, and if you look at the LGT, what it was dominated by, to come and see a tournament like this, very refreshing. So... At number 1, no surprises, Eldari 6-0. Number 2, shut Matt. Number 2, we've got Tau 6-0.
That doesn't surprise me.
Guard at number 3.
That does surprise me.
Which, we'll get into that. I don't know what the list was, but that's a biggie. Number 4, we've got Necrons at 5-0-1. Number 5 was Chaos Space Marines. Number 6, and this is mega, Votan with 5-1. Number 7, we've got Tyranids. Number 8, we've got Orcs. Number 9, we've got Eldari again. And number 10, and our friend Ray, who we all know from Black Crow, and he attends a lot of the events, Paul's and my own events, Death Guard.
Yeah. So big mix in that top 10. I must admit, the top 5, there's only one surprise for me. I think all 4 of the other armies are definitely up there in terms of capable of winning tournaments. I'm a big Eldari fan, as we've said a million times already, so it doesn't surprise me at all. Tau, I've played a couple of games into recently since the data slate change. They are rough. They are not somebody to run into and go, oh no, there's 6 crisis suits and a Cold Star Commander. Oh no.
And here's 40 some odd shots. We roll into hit, we roll into wound.
It's ridiculous. And then
I had to face into 12 in round 1. Horrible.
Yeah, no. And then there's this one guy who can stand in the middle of the board, and he's a load up, and also he's a battle suit that's the size of
that guy.
Yeah, just whatever. Necrons again. So Necrons is another army I play. I think Necrons are really strong, especially at scoring points. They just essentially chuck 20 warriors in the middle of the board and just say, deal with it. I think that's so tough. They're shooting, their output's not great. I'm actually weirdly experimenting with the list with the Silent King back in it, which is making me very happy. But yeah, I think they've got a lot of play. Chaos Space Marines, we've said as well, really, really strong. Guard, Arron, tell me, what's going on there?
So there's a bit of a shock here. So as we all know, WTC, we assume if they're using WTC Touring, like they've probably got similar type of terrain. We don't know what terrain they use because we can't get the actual list up because of where it is, the way BCP works, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But we'll make some assumptions. WTC terrain, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt as well, is denser than what we're used to over in the UK.
It can be, yeah.
And that was the ITT. That was the thing that they were commenting on, wasn't it? Is that the terrain was denser over there. So you would have thought that a shooting army, light guard, with lots of tanks would struggle. So how do we think he's done it? What do you think?
Indirect.
Yeah, it's just gonna be indirect, isn't it? It's just gonna be 3 basilisks, 3 manticores, 3 million mortars, probably one of those heavy carriages forge road things. Yeah, it's probably just a lot of that. And I would probably say there's I don't know, maybe some chimeras with some guys in it, or I don't know. I'm not really sure. I know a lot of guard players are looking at the Dawn again now, which makes me very happy.
I mean, it's going to have been strong. It went 6-0 at a 200 person event, so it's not like it didn't lose. It obviously they did something that worked for them. So imagine guard players, if you go onto the guard Facebook groups or Discords at the minute, they'll all be losing their mind right now.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of that would go positive, and I don't want to take anything away from whoever this player was who went 6-0 with guard, is it's WTC scoring. So all he's got to do is win 11-9 in 6 games. Now, that's really difficult, but if he gets 6 close wins, he still gets his 6-0. It appears, obviously, that would be, he was the only other person to go 6-0. So out of the 3, if he's got 6 low score wins, then he finishes in the top 3. So I don't know whether that's the strategy, whether it was to just go undefeated but just scrape. Again, WTC scoring, I think, as someone who's not really played much of it, very, very little, it's a different animal. You do see lists that are set up for WTC scoring over standard battle points.
You could say the same thing about like how we score here now, though, because now it's strength of opponent. I think that you don't really have to get them 95, 100-point wins every game. You just need to beat strong opponents.
Yeah,
so I suppose do the same thing.
If you scrape a 60-50 win against an Eldari opponent every round, then you're going to be doing okay. Eldari are strong, or so. Whereas if you do it against, I don't know, who's a bad army at the moment? I'm not really. The sisters aren't great at the minute. I don't know.
This is good at scoring though.
Yeah,
true. I had a tough game against sisters over the weekend.
Because I keep looking at all the army breakdowns at the moment. There seems to be a very stacked middle pack. And so it's hard to say there's a bad army.
World Eaters, maybe.
World Eaters did something this weekend, though. Am I right in saying that?
We're gonna so let's move on actually, because I think you guys are going to be quite surprised when we get to the very bottom. We start breaking down some of these stats. So the next one is Orlando, and we may have heard of this one. This is the Crucible 2023. This is 81 players, so not as big as that 200-person event, but it's one that a lot of people talked about over in the States. That was won by Tyranids, 7-0.
Mr. John Lennon, I believe.
Yeah. I wonder how good at singing he is. Then in number 2...
He's very good at Warhammer.
Then number 2, we've got Black Templars. Number 3, Eldari popping their head up again. Number 4, we've got Chaos Space Marines. And number 5, we've got Templars again.
And I've got a funny feeling one of those Templars players is also another Art of War guy. I think it's Jack Harpster.
Probably.
Because I know a couple of them were going this weekend.
Yeah.
They're extremely good players. Again, it's like we said to Paul, we're seeing Tyranids at the top of that pile. I'm very surprised we didn't see Tyranids place higher at the LGT.
It was what's because you've got in the breakdown it's Tyranids SN.
It's different terrain though, isn't it? When you think about it, when it's denser terrain, the melee type armies and the heavy infantry armies do a lot better.
Yeah. What's the detachment? It was the Tyranids. Which one did they use in that 7-0? It wasn't Invasion Fleet. It wasn't the Vanguard.
If it wasn't Vanguard Onslaught, it's probably Endless Swarm, I would imagine.
No, it wasn't Endless
It
Swarm.
wasn't. Oh, okay. It wasn't.
No,
Okay.
there's another one. There's another one. I can't think what it is. Not Assimilation. What's the other one? It wasn't Crusher. It's the one thing, the one I can't remember.
I will find out. Keep talking.
We'll move on whilst we work. And
it says SN in the breakdown, and I keep thinking spore nodes, and I'm going, no, that's not a detachment.
just an army of spore nodes.
Just an army of spores.
2,000 points worth of spore nodes with 7-0.
Yeah, I can't think what it is.
Was
Anyway,
it Synaptic Nexus?
That's the one.
Nexus. There you go.
Yeah, nice and complicated.
I know John Lennon's been talking about that one as a sleeper hit, so it doesn't surprise me if it is Mr. Lennon that's piloted Tyranids to 7-0. As far as I know, it is. So that doesn't surprise me at all.
So the next one we've got up is, God, I can't believe I'm going to try and pronounce this. The Shazoo or whatever Buccaneers Open in Switzerland, which was 60 players, 5 rounds. WTC scoring, and quite a lot of people out there will be happy. I'm happy to see this. Orcs won 5-0.
Very nice.
Everybody loves seeing Orcs win. Orcs are just a feel-good army, aren't they, at the minute?
I don't like Orcs. I'm sorry, controversial opinion, but
they're the
joke. Yeah, true, but they're the joke army in a grim dark set. I don't like it.
What you mean by telling me you don't like these bunch of muscle-bound mushrooms?
Oh no, no. There's 2 armies in 40k. Complete off topic. Two armies in 40k that I wouldn't mind seeing the bin. One of them is the Space Dwarves, and the other one's the Green Men. I don't care. I'm upsetting a lot of people there. But yeah, no. I'd like if Orcs in 40k were going to stay, I'd like them to go more like the Ard Boys and the the Iron Jaws style, like the big and really, rather than the jokey kind of style, which I think they've sort of done with the new Beast Snaggers. But yeah, anyway, back to the topic.
I thought we were here to talk 40k, not AOS.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love an Orc game. So like Orcs are normally my most funnest games at a tournament, but only if I go first. If I go second, then they're not much fun at all.
I will just say I've got to. I can't. It was at Beachhead last year. I played a guy called John, who is part of the Honest Wargamer team. And he did the best wah I've ever heard at a tournament, because you will normally get the person who shouts wah, and I just roll my eyes because I'm one of those people. And he went to call his wah, and he just literally went, and that was the best one I've ever heard. I was like, yep, that's fine. I can live with that one. I can live with
that. That's a more sophisticated wah.
Yeah, more sophisticated wah. I was like, good, cool, I can deal with that.
I'd love to hear someone do it in like an old style, really upper class British voice. Wow.
Yeah,
there are lots of variations. You get the all-outers, don't you? And then the people that start doing a wah and then get a little bit embarrassed and go quiet at the end of it.
Yeah. Or you get the ones who do the wah and then their voice breaks. Like they just hit puberty going, they go, wah!
Yes, exactly. So Orcs came first. Who came second? Because I know exactly what's going to happen.
4-1.
Great.
After you just slagged off the Space Dwarfs.
Oh, I hate them so much.
I'm afraid they're coming back.
I'm pretty sure they don't like you very much either now.
I just I just don't like them. Sorry, just don't. Anyway, and in third place,
Dark Angels with 4-1.
Very nice.
And then we've got 4th and 5th with also 4-1s, Tau and Chaos Knights. So
Chaos Knights appearing again.
We're not seeing any Aldari, but I do want to know what is it that's bringing these Chaos Knights up, because their rules typically aren't as strong as Imperial Knights, because they play a lot with Battleshock, and Battleshock doesn't have that much into the game. So what's changed for them? Is it that they've got their access to, I'm going to call them the Baby Knights, and Stephen will hate me for it because, well, I think he calls them Baby Knights anyway. Stuff you, Stephen. You're not even here.
Doggos.
Yeah, the doggos. They've got a little bit more of an arsenal, or are they exactly the same as Imperial Knights?
They play very different, don't they?
Josh just put in chat, Baby Knight spam.
Yeah, definitely Baby Knights. That's what I would probably say. And they've got variety in the Baby Knights, haven't they? They've got a combat-y one. They've got a melt guy. They've got the Helverin style one. I can't remember what they're called. And they've got the one with the Gatling cannon, which is, not fun to play against if you've got warp spiders.
They do look cool as well. Like they are super smart, and they're a conversion. Someone who likes doing conversions, it's your dream, isn't it? Because you can just do so much with them.
Definitely, I've seen some.
And
very
the one
cool
big
ones.
difference between Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights is one CP strat. I think it's called Knight of Shade, is it? Or Shade of Night, and they can literally, like, if they've got 2 CP, they can literally go 2 of them, 14 inches or 12 inches, depending on which one it is, through a ruin in a straight line, and then they can do it again when they charge.
Yeah.
Where Imperial Knights have to go the long way around.
Yeah, they're one of those armies that if you get, it sounds terrible because again, don't want to take anything away from the skill of the players, but they're one of those armies that if you go first, you just start everything on the line, and if you just go first in 5 games, you win.
8 OC per model, control the middle of the board. They're hard to get off the middle of the board. That's why they're better than Imperial Knights at the moment, in my opinion.
I guarantee after this Meta Monday, because I know Josh is currently in the chat as well, I guarantee he's probably now looking at his app being like, what can I do with all my baby knights that are on the shelf for Chaos Knights?
Dear, oh dear. So okay, what was the next one? Yeah, next one was...
It's called the Moab. So he's obviously been playing a lot of balloons. In Sylvania, North South Wales, Australia, 55 players, 5 rounds. He has just messaged 8 OC, each T10. So see, he is looking at him. Anyway, back to it. The Moab 2023. So in first place, who do we think? Go on, Paul, what's your guess if you're not looking at it?
It's in Australia. It could be anybody.
Yeah. I'm going to say World Eaters because of the comment that was made earlier.
No, Chaos Space Marines.
Oh, okay. That was an easy guess, actually.
They've done this weekend. They've done well this weekend.
Yeah.
Definitely.
In second, we've got Orcs. In third, we've got Tyranids again, poking the header. In fourth, Votan. And in fifth place, showing their face again, is Chaos Knights.
Yeah, they seem to have just crept in there. Chaos doing really well as well in placing as well. So that's good. They seem to just be appearing, which is good. And another Votan. And
Tyranids again. We talked about it earlier. We said Tyranids are looking strong.
Yeah, and that was Vanguard as well.
Yeah. So we're going to go on to the next
one. Good old Vanguard.
Yeah. Vanguard for life, yeah. 40k SA Nationals 2023. This is in South Africa. I've never heard of a tournament in South Africa before. I'm absolutely loving it that they're getting on the Warhammer hype train out there. 51 players as well, which is a lot of players. Bear in mind, South Africa isn't a place that we typically hear of. 5 rounds, and in number 1 was Imperial Knights, 5-0. Number 2, we got Dark Angels.
Yep.
Number 3, Necrons with a 4-1. Number 4, we've got World Eaters with a 4-1. And number 5, we've got Chaos Knights again.
Yeah, okay. I'm just gonna, sure. I will shout out there was a couple of Necrons in following that as well. So Necrons like here in again, and then Imperial Knights after we've just said they're rubbish.
I know. I was thinking the same. Well, clearly we didn't say they were rubbish. We just said they weren't as good as Chaos Knights. To be fair.
Typical.
I mean, we've got to remember with strength, like the type they might have played into opponents that favoured for what their army is. It's interesting to see. Chaos, like there's certain things that we're seeing quite repetitively come into the top 5 or in the top 10 is Chaos Knights. Chaos Knights are there. Chaos Space Marines are there. Eldari are there. Eldari have all featured at the bigger tournaments, but these little ones they tend to not be as much. Not entirely sure why, but
I think I know why.
Go on, give it a go.
Do you know what I think it is? Because it's a similar thing. I think sometimes I'm going to say it, and then one of the next tournaments we're going to talk about, I think, was won by Eldari. But I think a little bit of, especially in sort of your bigger local events, which you're talking like 30, 40 players, your Eldari players are bored. or they've been playing their practice games with their friends, and then they're going to go to a tournament with their friends or everyone they know, and they're going to stomp them again after stomping them at practice in their clubs. There's been times when I'm not the best player in the world, but I've gone to my club and I've played 3 games in 3 weeks, and I've won every single one. I've barely lost a model, and I've got past turn 2. And I just want to go and have some fun. So I think some of the smaller events, you will see people rein back maybe on it. When you go to the big events, it's let's win, let's get as many points as possible. Go for it. I mean, I don't know if it's 100% accurate, but I know I've seen it in the local events I've gone to where I'm the only Eldari player. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm that guy.
You're that guy. Well, you know, we say that. We're going on to the next one is the Warhammer Open in Canada, Winnipeg. 40 players, 6 rounds. Nice. And that was won by Tau with a 6-0. No shock. We all know Tau is strong. Second place, 5-1 was Eldari. Now, here's the big shocker. Death Guard, third, 5-1.
Yeah, I think
you say that though, but one of my VT buddies, Arron, he went 4-1 with Death Guard at LGT.
Yeah,
they have got some play now.
Yeah, definitely. They're a little bit hoardy, but because they're Space Marines, like a horde is not shambles, and then normally got Mortarion packing a punch as well. So
yeah, Mortarion buffing the PBCs, they were saying, is just very brutal at the moment.
Yeah. Definitely.
Well, people seem to be doing well. We're going to come on to the next one, and that is we're at the last 2 tournaments to talk about now. We've got Come the Apocalypse GT in Dauphin AL, which I don't even know what that is.
Alabama.
Okay, thank you very much. You obviously know your states. That's 32 players, 5 rounds, so it's a relatively small tournament. Not terrible for it's quite a decent turnout. Number 1, Eldari. Number 2, Tyranids. Number 3, Chaos Demons, which is the first podium we've seen for Chaos Demons in all of the tournaments. Number 4, we've got Templars. 5 Chaos Space Marines. And number 6, we've got Tau.
Yeah, that to me, apart from Demons and Templars, I would probably say that looks like what you're going to see, typical sort of top 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Now I think you're going to see an Eldari. I think you'll probably see Nids. You probably see Chaos Space Marines. I think you'll see Tau. I'm going to do a quick prediction. Here's Matt's prediction for the episode. I think you're going to start seeing Space Wolves as well.
We're gonna talk about that actually, because although we're talking about tournament wins, as in who's come top, we've not got onto percentages yet. Now the win percentages is where it's going to be very interesting, because before we get too into it, so the numbers can be a little bit skewed, so it needs to be talked about how many times they're represented, what their loss is, because obviously some armies will be represented not as much, so the stats for them will swing higher in either direction depending on how well they're doing. But anyway, we'll go to the Battle Bowl GT, Midland, Texas. That's 25 players, 5 rounds. Necrons 5-0, Orcs 4-1, Chaos Knights 4-1, Chaos Space Marines 4-1, Chaos Demons 4-1.
Nice to see Necrons take a little win there.
Right at the end. I think what we've seen, so the data slate has now dropped. It has mixed things up massively. I don't think people were necessarily expecting it to change what it has changed. So I think Custodies, obviously, they haven't been represented once in here. We all know Custodies are my golden babies, but they haven't really shown their face in any here. There's only a few Custodians even went 4-1. I think only one Custodian player went 4-1 at the LGT. Correct me if I'm wrong. And
it's the dev wound change, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they've lost their defense mechanism, haven't they?
Yeah, they've been made very expensive, which they should have been. However, they didn't get compensated when they did the dev wound change. Now, a lot of armies pump out a lot of dev wounds. I mean, you only have to take a load of salt cannons, and all of a sudden, Custodies are in a bit of trouble, because
it's the patented GW triple nerf, isn't it? They got hit with points, they got hit with rules, and then they got some random other hit because of the dev wound change. It's like, okay, you can't take as many models, you can't save against dev wounds. Oh, and by the way, we put your points up by 50%.
And they weren't even the target of the dev wounds nerf, were they? They were just literally like a random third party that just got hurt more than the intended target.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So shall we talk about some percentages?
Go for it.
Now, we're gonna go. I'm not gonna go into it too much because, like I said, the numbers can get a bit skewed. But Deathwatch were represented by 11 players this weekend across all these tournaments, so not actually that much. But they amongst themselves, they got a 58% win rating.
Okay.
Which is the highest of all of them over the weekend, and the main reason that is because only 11 players took them, and it was either going to go one way or the other. They're either going to win or they're going to lose, and then, like I said, their percentage would swing massively because there's not as many of them.
Yeah. So
58%. I don't think we should be looking at that thinking, oh my god, Deathwatch are the army. They were just the people who represented them this weekend represented them well.
Yeah. So let's look at, instead of going through, because else you're going to be here forever looking at the whole table.
We're not going to go through them all. Don't worry.
Thank God.
We're going to go for the big ones. So
yeah.
Orcs were represented 52 players, which is quite a lot. They had a 56% win rate. So Orcs might actually they're creeping into Stu Black's digits of wrath.
Yeah, no, not that many. It's difficult with that few players. Still, you got to look at hundreds and hundreds of results.
So this is what we're going to go into now. So Eldari was still represented over the weekend 118 times, playing 633 games, winning 341 of them at 54%.
That's all right. It's under that magic 55 number. We're fine.
Yeah. All 100, but you got to think that's 118 people.
Yeah. So
on average, were 54% win rate.
Yeah, and it's very easy to. People underestimate when you go to tournaments. It's very easy to make a bad list or like turn up with a Phantom Titan and just think you're gonna win a game. Like, okay, so yeah. The difficulty is, as an Eldari defender, and I'm very sorry, everybody, but I don't know what you do, because you either nerf them into the ground, and poor people like me love them. Don't do that to me. Don't get to play their toys anymore. Or you do the light touches, and then everybody moans because we still win. I genuinely don't know how you fix.
I tell you how they fix Eldari.
Nice.
You bring out their codex. And I hope to God that they've not gone and messed it up.
It's a long way away, though, isn't it? I think it's not even in the schedule for the next lot of codexes. So
we'll see. The next one I wanted to talk about, which only represented 83 times, which would probably surprise you, is Chaos Space Marines, but they did have a 54% win rating.
Okay.
So I was expecting them to be represented more than that, but.
Is this just a LGT, or is this overall over the weekend?
This is all of the big tournaments from the Meta Monday, because he only covers GTs.
Yeah,
which gives you just it gives you just better data, because on an RTT, anything can happen on a free
100%.
Anything, like it's so on a GT it tends to be a little bit more okay. This is where we're really at with the meta.
Yeah.
Tau were represented 71 times, and they've got a win rate of 53%. Now, I've got a theory as to why I don't think that's higher. I think that Tau has a very loyal fan base, and it's one of those that when they're bad, you'll still see them represented a lot of times. When they're good, you'll see them represented a lot of times. So I'm unsure if that is a true representation of.
I think again that's because there are people that want to take 3 hammerheads and long strike and be like, this is really cool, and it's not very good.
I think that's true. And because let's be honest, we looked at the LGT. What the top 20? was Tau represented in the top 20? Let's quickly go up and have a look.
There was one or two, I think.
Yeah, there was a lot of Tau there, but yeah, not right at the
13th.
top.
So only one Tau player in the top.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm kind of. It's all suits now. Josh is saying it's all suits now. He's right. It is all suits.
Yeah. And the issue is it's so easy to score against Tau as well. So if they don't table you, you score really well against them, because most people will just turn up and go, "Oh, I'm playing Tau. Okay, I'll take Teleport Homer and bring it down, and I'll score loads of secondary." And now as a Tau player, you've got to beat me on my primary, which they're not great at. So they either have to shoot you off the table or you outscore them.
Yeah.
And if you can play clever or be resilient, then they struggle a little bit. But I mean, if you give them an inch, and they will table you.
Straight out of the Vanguard Tactics core book of skills. We're gonna move on, and we're gonna look at the Leagues of Votan. The reason I'm gonna bring up Leagues of Votan because Leagues of Votan were at the very bottom of the meta. They were rock bottom of the meta.
Yeah.
They're now going from what were they at 1.28% win rate? They're now
something stupid like that.
at 51% win rate and only 39 players. So, I think that Leagues of Votan, as they get picked up by more players, I think we're going to see that percentage creep up. I think because their points have dropped, they're a very expensive army to buy now, aren't they? Like they're not going to be cheap to get your 2,000 points, that's for sure.
Yeah. And there was an undefeated player with Votan at LGT as well.
Wow. Okay.
So one of my friends, Greg Chamberlain, he went 4 wins and 1 draw.
Wow.
Well done. I think the difficulty again with them, and I'm trying to keep my personal opinions about them as limited as possible, is they are new. They are a love-hate army. Everybody I know or I've spoken to either loves the aesthetic or absolutely hates them. And I think that's going to meet that in terms of when you look at the big armies that are always the ones that have got big attendances at tournaments. Your Space Marines obviously is the obvious one. Everybody and their dog has a Space Marine army. Tau is, unbelievably. So Space Marines is the biggest selling army for GW. The next biggest selling army for GW is actually Tau. Tau outsell all of Age of Sigmar, which is mad. So you're going to see them quite a lot. You're going to see Eldari a lot. It's a big popular faction. It's been around for a while. I think Votan's one of those factions. It's going to take some time before you actually see like a fan base for it. I mean, the aesthetic for me, I am an elf. I'm an elf fan. It's they're just not for me. And the models are, don't get me wrong, they're beautiful models in terms of their construction and how they're made, but they don't. The aesthetic for me doesn't do anything. Whereas some people do like the aesthetic, and I think when you go to tournaments, there are still, I'd still say that 60-70% of the people that go to tournaments, they love their army. That's their one or two factions. So I think unless Votan are really, really powerful, you're never going to see them represented well. I know, the other, an army that I kind of paint similarly is another elf faction is Drakari. You've only ever seen Drakari in the hands of loads of players when they were broken. Now they're fine. There's 10 players.
We're going to get onto that. So I have a theory about Drakari.
Hi, Simon.
We'll give a shout out to our fellow pro who is a Drakari rent boy. So we're gonna move down because I want to talk about 2 other factions that we know that are popular and they're represented quite a lot. Necrons, represented 91 times, had a win rate of 45%.
Yeah.
So below the Magic Stu Black number, and also Adeptus Custodes were still represented 71 times, and they had a win rate of 45%. Now, I think Adeptus Custodes, take them to a super major, probably going to struggle. Take them to smaller GTs, I think they'll do better. How do you feel about that, Paul? What do you think?
It depends on the crowd. So I was saying earlier about smaller GTs or RTTs, people maybe not taking the meta armies, but if they do, and you turn up with custodes, you're gonna face into that, and you're gonna have a very bad weekend with custodes. Whereas obviously a bigger varied event, then you may miss those matches that are a real problem. There was, you said 73, so I think someone said to me there was 40 at LGT, so over the half of the custodes over the weekend were at LGT, which I found quite surprising that there was still that many there. So people are obviously enjoying them. It's just a shame that, like we said earlier, that the changes have nerfed them massively, and they're just not having the success that they were.
So they have a lot of, like, Adeptus Custodes, they still have a lot of fun. They do a big part of the game which a lot of people enjoy, and that is combat. Combat is a very popular part of the game, and you speak to a lot of people in the hobby, and a lot of people love the combat phase. It is a fun, interactive phase, and if Custodes do get into combat and they go first in combat, they win combat. That's just how it is. So that if they can get into armies that are of that similar type of ilk, then they'll do very, very well. Against your Eldaris, it's probably a no contest now, because they just can't handle the dev wound population, they can't handle the speed, the board control. It's just not there for Adeptus Custodes at the minute. Not saying it's completely unwinnable, but I think it's very, very difficult.
Weirdly, I'd say like Eldari's actually not playing a lot of dev wounds at the moment. Now the Wraith Knight's probably disappeared, but I think it's just the firepower that Eldari have got, and Custodes. The thing that was always worrying for Custodes into Eldar players is that they could advance and charge 2 units, and you couldn't stop them unless you had 2 Night Spinners. And now you can just go, oh, there's a unit that's going to advance and charge. Cool, Night Spinner, thanks, it's stopped. So I think that's the thing, is Eldari and then just so fast that they don't have to worry about Custodes. They don't kill them, but they don't have to. I'm shocked about. Well, I was shocked about Necrons when I first heard it. And actually, I thought about it, and I'm not at all. I think that's probably fine.
People have figured out Necrons now, haven't they? They know how to kind of deal with them now, and they're tricking their armies to. So I know for a fact that, so I put one thing in my army, Thousand Suns, in case I got Necrons, and I think everybody does the same thing.
Yeah, so little preview into my thinking, because I've got a GT coming up in the next couple of weeks. I've entered my Eldari list, and I've got a 9-man Wind Rider unit with a Farseer and a Warlock, specifically in case I run up into 20 Necron Warriors, because it will kill them. And it just, I don't care if you've got, it's ignoring cover, it's got AP, it's got 2 damage, so if you want to add Feel No Pains on top, it will go through it. And there's a million shots, and I've got a massive blast weapon in there with the Eldritch Storm. And I can probably shoot you at range, because they probably have the short range guns. So again, it kills the Necron Warrior blob, and then a Night Spinner can deal with the other one. So it's, like you said, everybody's got a tech for 20 warriors. So I do think again, there is also, Necrons are a big army because of the whole 9th edition launch box and the easiness of collecting them. I've built a massive Necron army, and I've barely spent a penny on it in terms of, compared to what I've spent on my Eldari, which is a similar size, because I could get a lot of stuff cheap because of Imperium Magazine and Indomitus and all that sort of stuff. So there are a lot of players who are coming into the game who maybe don't want Space Marines, who've gone into Necrons, and they might be running around with all sorts of bits and pieces, whereas the players who've got the top lists, who are running the 20 warrior blobs, 40 warriors and a couple of characters and a couple of Catan. That Catan is an idiot. I hate that guy. So
you hate a lot of factions, don't you?
I know what, we've invited you on it, but you just hate everything.
You just hate 40k, don't you?
40k is bad, right?
I love that. 40k is bad. I love Necrons. They're one of my favourite factions, and it's the second army I collect. But that stupid Catan with the 4-up Feel No Pain is just bonkers. I had a slap fight with him, and we had played a game against Necrons recently, and I had the Avatar of Cain versus that guy for 4 turns. It was very entertaining. But at the end of those 4 turns, the Avatar was dead, and the flipping Catan was still alive on all his wounds. But yeah, I think there are people out there who've just got this large random collection. They're just kind of throwing something together, and that's their list. Whereas there are players who can build a Necron army. It'd be interesting to see. I know, is it? I can't think what it's called now. It used to be called Stat Center, not Stat Center. What's the one that Innes Wilson does? Stat Check. That's the one. They do all their 40k stats and stuff. And I know they look at like represented by like good players. So they look at the stat for like people who are like tournament veterans. And I know that Necrons are performing very well in the hand of good tournament players. I think it's a little bit of experience, but like you said, there are also players like Paul, like myself, like who are going to tournaments and go, well, if I run into a Necron army or a Horde army, I need to clear it. So I think that kind of.
I mean, Mark Cromblehome always does really well with Necrons, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So you have got those players that adapt and still do really well with Necrons.
Yeah, definitely. There's always something hiding in that book.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on. I want to talk about the very bottom of the pack. I know we've skipped a few, but this one I think is important because I don't think this is a true representation of actually how well the army's doing. So Drukhari are sitting dead bottom with 39% win rate. Now, I just want to point out that although they're sitting right at the bottom, there is a lot of Drukhari souped into these Eldari lists.
Yeah, a lot of Yennarias appearing at the moment.
A lot of Scourges are in.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, again, we're talking about these players. Probably a lot of these top players who are doing Yennari have got Drukhari armies as well, and they're just souping them in because they're like, well, both together are better than them separately. But if they went pure Drukhari, we'd probably see this win rate up much higher.
Yeah. A lot of Eldari fans have got Drukhari armies as well.
Yeah, because they love a bit of torture, right? It's just their thing. And
Pointy ears.
And I don't know how you guys feel about like Drukhari as a whole, but we're seeing a lot of like the Yennari. We're seeing a lot of souping. Yeah. Do you think that's going to be how it's going to continue for a while, or do you think we're going to see the Drukhari eventually creep up a bit of a higher win rate?
I think the souping will stay. I think that's always been a thing, though, hasn't it? So when you actually think back, even in ninth, that's always been a thing. Yeah. Drukhari was just really like true Drukhari for a long time. Let's say when they were like proper broken in ninth.
Yeah.
And they were the army to play. Yeah. But since they've gone down the tiering, you have seen like souped lists and like a bit of Drukhari with like mixed elves and elves with harlequins and all these like souped lists that have been popping up just to get the best of everything.
Yennari's definitely on the rise. You are seeing Yennari lists do quite well, even with the Ravager change. But the whole point is the Ravagers went up, like 10 points versus the Fire Prism, which went up like 30. So you just go, okay, cool, well, I'll drop the Fire Prism and I'll put a Ravager in, and it's a similar amount of firepower, and it's 30 points, it's 50 points cheaper than a Fire Prism or whatever it is. So, I think, I actually think Drukhari are fine, but I think that's the problem.
Yeah, everything else is good. Yeah.
Yeah, Drukhari are like, because you just said they're the lowest performing faction, and it's 39%. It's not like it's a Votan 28 or a Admech 27 or 29 or
players.
That's the difference. Is there's not, because unfortunately a lot of, prime example, Arron, we know, we've got one of the Black Crow guys in Simon. He's a massive Drukhari fan. He's playing Eldari at the moment because he has an Eldari army alongside his Drukhari army, which is not as big. He can play Yennari if he wants to, but there you go. Like, I've got a couple of Drukhari bits. I can run Yennari. I can't run a full Drukhari army. But I know a lot of players, big Drukhari players. You look at Skari's running Necrons at the moment, but he's been running Yennari as well. Like, even the big Drukhari fanboys are running Yennari. So I think that's probably their problem, is they're just kind of okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. They're just okay.
Yeah. Just okay.
Yeah.
I think, and on that note, we're going to go into some final thoughts, guys. So we're going to look at wrapping it up. So I'm going to come to you, Paul. Then we'll go to Matt, we're going to do some final thoughts. I like to do this at the end of these streams, just to kind of see where we think and we predict. So, Paul, next big UKTC event, Coventry. Go on. What are you expecting to see? Any shocks to the world, or are you thinking it's going to be CSM Eldari up there?
I think it's going to be very similar to LGT. So I think it's going to be, CSM, Eldari. Hopefully my Thousand Sons. Well, you never know.
Sometimes pigs fly.
Bit of Black Templars, Dark Angels maybe, Chaos Knights.
Well, the thing is, the Space Marine Codex is coming out, and there is some tasty things in there. Yeah. And Matt is itching to talk about it. Go on, Matt. What do you think?
So when is the next big UKTC event, or the big GTs? The next one is Leicester.
Coventry, then Leicester. Yeah.
When is Coventry? Is it?
It's not far away. It's not far away. It's a few weeks.
Okay. It's a few weeks away. So I was just wondering whether the Necron and the AdMech book might have appeared in time for one of them, but I don't think we'll see them this time. I think we'll probably see them December.
I don't think they'll be out.
They won't be in time.
Leicester. No.
I've got similar opinion to Paul. I believe it will be fairly similar. I've obviously not, I've listened to a lot of reviews about the Space Marine book and previews and things like that about what's inside it, and I haven't heard anything that's made me go, that's a problem. I've heard a couple of things that sound fun. I've heard a couple of things that look interesting and might catch a couple of people out. I know a lot of people, Josh has mentioned in our group chats, in the Black Crow group chats, about the deep striking or infiltrating Deathwing, which I just think is a trick. I just think it's one of those things that you go, oh, that caught me out once, and it never caught me out again.
So it's 11th and 12th of November. So actually that might make a difference.
So
Matty's just said to us, Necrons and EdMac are winter, so it could be December, Jan, or February.
So maybe we'll see if there's maybe one of those books drops early, but I don't think so. I think there's a preview, I believe, in a couple of weeks' time. So maybe we'll see some sight of some new models for Necrons or an AdMech, because I know they've got new models with each release. But going back to the GT in Coventry, I think it'll be pretty much the same. But I want to do a special kind of keep an eye on, and I don't know if Paul agrees with me on this one, but Space Wolves. Because Space Wolves are going to have access to the new Space Marine book, and there happens to be a detachment which is very interesting because it's all about advancing and charging, and it keys off mounted. And what do Space Wolves want to do?
Yeah.
And I do wonder whether there's a list with, a few speeders, like storm speeders, behind 18 Thunderwolf cavalry. And I just wonder, that can advance and charge. They can be -1 to hit and wound for 1 CP, and it's a battle tactic. So that's 2 units of Thunderwolf cavalry that's -1 to hit and wound. I think there's something in there, I know they're mounted, so they've got to run around ruins, but if they're advancing and you can auto advance 9, again, 1 CP battle tactic stratagem, I think Space Wolves might just be something to watch out for.
Okay. Paul's unsure, but we'll find out.
Maybe.
So we're gonna round it up. I'm gonna say thank you for both Matt and Paul for joining us tonight.
Yeah.
If you've
You're
liked
welcome.
what you've heard, please like and subscribe. I'm just going to do a few shout outs as well. So obviously we've got Paul on with us tonight. He is the TO for Peterborough Slam. The link to BCP is in our description. So if you're thinking about coming to a tournament in the East Anglia region or Peterborough, and you think, you know what, I fancy it, Paul's got a 40-person event.
42 we normally max out at.
42-person event.
Awesome.
GT going, and then he's also got a Teams event in December. But the BCP link for his GT is in the description. We've got Matt with us today as well. You can catch him on his Instagram. He's at Vision Gaming on Instagram.
Vision Wargaming. There you go.
Vision
Nearly there.
Wargaming. Thank you.
Yeah.
And he basically is painting miniatures for people out there who just can't paint that good.
That's not true.
But he's doing fantastic work. Please find him on Instagram. Have a look. He's doing great. I just want to say thank you guys again for joining us. Next week we've got
Welcome.
two gents who were both at the LGT. They're quite explosive personalities. Expect this one to be quite a wild one. We've got his name's a guy called Simon and a guy called Gareth. They're going to be on shortly. Matt knows them quite well, and that
Yeah.
should be quite entertaining. But from us at Black Crow Gaming, thank you very much. Take it easy.
See you later.
See you later.